Hi, it's Ben Wolfson, and here I'm. Obviously, you know who I am, but here I am delivering your next lecture. So this lecture is quite a long lecture. It is four. So I've decided to split into four separate parts. It's on the extended miasm model developed by Rajan Sankaran. And the first part will be an introduction, where I'll speak a bit about it, how it arose, and so forth. The next section will be to do with what I would call the primary miasms in the model. There are four primary miasms. Three of them we already know. In other words, that is the SORA, psychosis, and syphilis. But we're going to add acute as another primary miasm here. The reason why we go into detail on these primary miasms first is because they provide a lot of the background, and they kind of allow us to see where the other miasms, the new miasms, fit in to this framework. Okay, then the next section, which is probably one of the longest, or maybe a main section, it will cover the new miasms which we haven't seen as yet. We haven't seen the acute miasm, but it will cover an extra 6 miasms, making 10 miasms in total. So then the final section will be a conclusion which will have some applications and some implications of the Sankaran Extended MIasm model. Okay, let's get onto share screen. All right. So we are talking about these extended models, and it is an element of that research is something that carries on. Knowledge is always deepening. We might think at some points we know it all, but there's generally more to learn around the corner. And that makes some of the fascination and the love in searching for more understanding in science, truth, beauty, and all these good things in life. There's an idea of Kaizen as well. Kaizen is a Japanese philosophy for businesses and industries. And the idea there is that of continuous improvement. So let's have a look at these ideas of these extended miasm as a continuous improvement idea. As I've said, that Kaizen, that continuous improvement, and a lot of the big steps in the sort of modernization of homeopathy started with the homeopath George Vitulkas in the 1970s, and later on carried on by some others, Rajan Sankaran, Jan Scholten, Andre Sain, Manjula Vori, Roger Morrison, Jeremy Sher, Nancy Herrick, and many others. And Rajan Sankaran in particular has worked a lot in the philosophy of homeopathy and the practical application, and has extended the Hahnemannian miasms and the post-Hahnemannian miasm models. Okay, what is happening now? Let's get back to that. I don't know why it stopped there. So 2 major innovations with the Sankaran Extended MIasm model. The first is creating links and connections between the existing miasms. So there are other researchers and other writers who have created links, but these links are created more explicitly and more directly. So as opposed to Hahnemann, who would have seen Sora as this, psychosis as that, and syphilis as something else, we're going to see as we move through this, these lectures and this model, how the miasms are really interconnected and interrelated. So besides filling in the links and connections, they also fills in the gaps, because there is quite a chasm, if you think about it, between, let us say, Sora and psychosis. Surely there could be some in-between stages there, and we'll see how those are filled in. So those are filled in with more miasms. And I must admit, when I was a student and first came across this model and was myself struggling with 3 miasms and then 5, and thinking, oh no, another 5, 10 miasms altogether, isn't it enough? But let's see how we go with this. And over time, I'm quite happy with the 10 miasm model, and this 10 miasm model we'll see towards the end of the lectures actually is growing further. But our primary focus is going to be on the 10. Now, why is my thing not working? Okay, so let's look at, from here, at what miasms are. So we start on Sankaran's view. His view is a response to stress, kind of a coping style. And we'll have a look at a few scenarios to get some idea of what I mean. So imagine in your neighborhood or living area, you hear there's a group of overseas visitors from Italy who are possibly COVID-19 plus, or they're definitely COVID-19, who've slipped through the quarantine net and are in your area. So your response will vary according to your nature and your character. So one possible response is panic and anxiety, and that could be strongly present until we found that they have been found and moved out the area. So this can be described as acute miasm. There's a sudden threat, we've heard about it. Once the threat is over, then we're okay. Some others might not feel so panic, but they could be more hopeful that the offenders will be found, but it would be quite a struggle in the meanwhile. And that could be called the soric miasm, or the soric response. So we see that instead of it being initially focusing all together on the inheritance of it and the description of what it is, but it is how people with different miasms might respond to exactly the same scenario. Others might be troubled and feel they are somehow responsible for the problem. Maybe they've also been breaking the lockdown regulations, visiting neighbors and so forth, friends. Thus they feel guilt and shame. They feel as long as no one knows about their behavior and possible COVID-19 status, that they're okay. So it's a kind of a hiding, and from our previous knowledge, we put that into the psychotic miasm as one of the main Hahnemannian miasms. Let's continue with what the miasms are. So as others might be, and others, oh yes, we still continue with our responses. Other people might feel that there is no hope at all. They feel doomed. I'm just going to move this a little bit out the way, and that they will be destroyed by the disease. And that feeling of doom and destruction can put into the syphilitic miasm. Well, let's see why that is not coming up now. Okay, we'll put that into the syphilitic miasm. And let's see what more we've got over here. Okay, so there are many different coping styles, and we'll see that each one of Sankaran's 10 miasms is actually a description of a coping style. But there is a trajectory or path which we can see from that acute and this brief journey we've done to the syphilitic, and then journey is from the hopeful SORA to the no-hope syphilis. So there's a continuum from who would say are the least desperate, the soric or the acute, to the totally desperate, the syphilitic. So we're continuing on how Sankaran describes the miasms. So classical homeopaths discovered the tub miasm and cancer miasm because they noticed chronic states that didn't fit at that time, the 3 miasms. So Sankaran starts to find chronic states that don't fit the 5 miasms. He needs to take it further. So he started filling in these gaps, and one of the first books that I've seen it in, and I probably saw it just when I started studying, was The Soul of the Remedies. And here he's added the extra 5 miasms. As I've said before, there's linkages between the new miasms, and they fill the gaps between the old miasms. Prof. Ross has described this very well. He says it's like a railway line moving from the acute station to the syphilis station. And I'll use this metaphor as we go along as well. So there'll be a range of stops and sidings and intersections and junctions along the way. And these are the new miasms that we are now kind of discovering. So let's get on to his miasm map. And this is taken from the book. And so we can see the start of the railway line, the least desperate in a way, or most hopeful, the acute. We've seen the SORA, psychosis, fill-ins like typhoid and ringworm. And then there's some branching that takes place here. But generally, we can view it as ending with the most desperate, the syphilis miasm. Okay. So what we'll do now is I'm going to stop this share now, and I'm going to call this the first section of our video. The next section will deal with the Sankaran miasms in detail, and that, as I said, we'll start with those primary miasms and then later on show how they are filled in.